You're tuned into your new favorite podcast, Let's Be Clear, with me, Dr. Jamal Bryant, where we remove all of the blurred lines so there'll be no shades of gray and you'll be able to understand everything in black and white. Every week, you're going to understand what is happening in the headlines, what's happening in your community, what's happening in our world, and what's happening for your future. I'm excited to take this journey with you. I need you to do me a favor. I want you to be committed to listen and to see it every week. And I want you to share with all of your friends and all of your family. Today, I've got somebody who I need to clear up some stuff with. You want to hear this conversation? I'm telling you, it ain't black or white. It's red. It's blood everywhere. When you hear the name Bishop William Murphy. He's my brother. He's my friend. And right now, he's Hester Prynne from the Scarlet Letter because he has been thrown out of everything. But I want to be clear that I love him no matter what he says today. He is still my friend. William, thank you for hanging out with me on the day.
Let's be clear.
Let's be clear.
Let's be clear.
Yes.
We are excited about this opportunity to be with you.
Yes.
What God continues to do through you.
Oh yes, talk, Bishop.
Is you've always been a forerunner.
Yes.
And I'm grateful, man. Just it makes sense that the first podcast is the two of us talking.
It does.
And so I'm excited to be here. Thank you for. There's a bunch of other folk you could have had on today.
Nobody else I could have had on today.
This was God.
Yes.
This was God.
You have kicked down 2024 with Timberland boots.
Listen.
You're from Detroit. I'm from Baltimore. Let's just jump right into it because the last few weeks,
man,
you have been Tom Brokaw with Headline News.
Oh my goodness!
And I really want to be clear on what is the church for this generation.
Yes.
What is the church for culture? What is church for society?
Yes.
And I want to move backwards. You started off the year doing a baby dedication.
Man, listen.
No, you did a baby dedication for two icons of the culture.
No. First, I started off the year saying, let our uncle that we don't really agree with still come to Thanksgiving dinner. That was
Who's
the first
our
thing.
uncle?
I'm not no names. Just
no, we got to be clear. Who is the uncle?
Let's be clear. So the first controversy was around Bishop Carlton Pearson.
Yes.
And to be honest with you, this brother to brother, I was talking to my church. Completely honest with you, all of my PR people said, don't bring up Carlton Pearson, don't bring up the dedication, and don't bring up New Year's Eve.
And I want to be clear, you brought up Carlton Pearson. I didn't bring him up. I tried to jump over
Well,
him.
since you was talking, I just figured, because it's been 3 weeks.
It's been 3 weeks. So for those of you who don't go to church and have no idea who Carlton Pearson is, Carlton Pearson was defrocked by the African American College of Bishops for believing in inclusion and saying that there was no hell for people to go to. He died very recently after a battle with cancer. Bishop Murphy was one of the soloists at his funeral and then came back home. Yes.
Soloist. You dating yourself, man.
You a psalmist?
I'm not even. That don't even.
He was
sound
the guest artist at a funeral.
Okay.
I don't know how you put that together. He's a guest artist at a funeral.
I did an A and B selection.
He only did A. He came back home.
Actually, I didn't do an A because I gave my time back because it got a little.
So you
long.
didn't sing at all.
But I didn't sing at all. I was supposed to at the request of his daughter Majesty.
Yes.
Which is the segue into how we got here because. Both of us have this call to this generation, to this church. So Bishop Pearson's daughter, Majesty, who has, I think, one of the most cutting edge ministries. She's an up and coming soloist.
Yes.
And she just released some music out there. Majesty, you owe me. I just gave you a free plug. And so some kind of way we connected. Social media, she connected to my ministry. And when Bishop passed away, I reached out to say, hey, love you, praying for you, if you need anything, blah, blah, blah. She asked, it would really be an honor if you would come and minister at my dad's celebration of life. Of course, Dee and I jumped on a plane, went to Tulsa, and I was just really moved by the lack of presence. And my my conversation was around, we all have an uncle who says stuff that's off the wall that we don't agree with, but bet nobody else say nothing about him.
Right.
And the heart of that conversation was that we're serving a generation who does not feel safe in church. That the way that the church has handled our beloved, the way that the church has handled our most valued assets after they have displayed some type of humanity is just unsafe to people who have never been exposed to church culture. Yeah. So my conversation, Dr. Bryant, was around, as a church, we've got to be intentional about creating safe space for people who have never heard the message of the gospel, which was Jesus's whole, that was his whole flow.
Yeah.
And of course, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the religious order of the day, took issue with Jesus because he was always creating safe space for people who had never heard the message of the gospel. And so that was my whole argument, even with our daughters, Jessica and I'll
Don't
call
jump all the way in there yet. Hold on.
Okay.
So Bernice King's first book was Hard Questions, Heart Answers.
Wow.
And one of the things that you have ripped the Band-Aid off is the church's inability to just have conversation.
Yes.
And
yes.
People will take just one clip, one post,
90
one
seconds.
segment, yes, and say that is the full summary of what your theology is.
Right.
And what I really wanted you to talk about is how we can have compassion while disagreeing.
It's the currency of the kingdom.
Yes.
I think, Dr. Bryant, this is so key. And I honestly, you and I, we have very transparent conversations. I'm excited about this podcast because it's going to be a safe space for people to have fully transparent conversations without the judgment.
Yeah.
That a lot of us are still working through our theology. I'm a few months away from graduating with the Master's of Divinity from
Awesome.
Virginia Union University, from the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology. And just the other night, we were talking about what they call ATRs, African Traditional Religions. There are about 3,000 or more of them. And the thought of it is, the concept is that there is no separating what is secular and what is spiritual. Because everywhere I go, I take God with me. Everywhere I go, I take the gospel with me. So there is no separation between what is secular and what is spiritual. How I've articulated it is, we redeem everything. That we don't let the devil just take culture from us, and all we can ever do is a little church dance that probably 75% of Gen Zs can't even relate to. They've never seen it. Mama didn't grow up in church, grandmama half went. And so we're now tasked to win a generation who doesn't know who C.L. Franklin is, who doesn't know who Samuel DeWitt Proctor is.
Right.
We're now ministering to a generation. There arose another king who didn't know Joseph.
Yes.
So we've been here before. And so now I'm faced with, what do I do with a same gender loving couple who now has a child who wants to dedicate that child back to God? Is the child the sin? This is what's not safe, because I've seen all kind of stuff. Well, now I believe in the word is, I married them.
Yes.
I didn't perform the wedding. I dedicated the baby.
Right.
Y'all say this with me. I dedicated a baby. Those are our daughters. We're walking with them. We love them. I know the scripture talks about how can two walk together except they agree.
Right.
But we can agree to disagree as well.
The nexus, Bishop, of the African traditional religions that you also see in Native American religions,
yes,
and South American religions and West Indian, is a little bit skewed from the premise you're raising it, because they're dealing with the secular and the sacred in terms of the wind is sacred, the trees are sacred,
right,
the
right,
water is sacred.
right.
where you found yourself in the epicenter of the storm
We.
is walk it out.
Yeah.
So they would say that's not the same thing.
Yeah, that's not what they're saying.
In separating that sacred and the secular.
Right.
So let's go back to Carlton Pearson.
Okay.
So Carlton Pearson, your call to the church was the absence of compassion, even while disagreeing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That the off uncles still get to come to Thanksgiving dinner.
Yes.
He gonna bring macaroni and cheese.
Yes.
But nobody's gonna eat it.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. This safe family dynamic that
Yes.
I think we have abandoned, because if I can't agree with you, then I can have no love or compassion,
Right.
or even proximity
Yes.
to you. And I think that was what got Jesus killed, is
Yeah.
that he was raising these issues of being around people that were not quote unquote religious or sanctified, or whatever the language would have been back in that day, that he was very intentional about being in spaces
Right.
where proximity would create relationship. I think the church has been extremely guilty of cleaning fish before we catch the fish.
As you are a recording artist, you are a pastor, an intercessor, you're
Yes.
a father.
Yes.
What brings you at the center of the conversation is you are a bishop in the Lord's church.
Yes.
So in
A
being,
defender of the faith.
yeah, the defender of the faith, or is what they call a prince of the church.
A prince of the church.
And being the prince of the church, what then is the message as a bishop, not as an overseer, as a pastor, as a district elder, as a bishop,
Mm-hmm.
to confront the culture, doctrine, theology of a black church prism that says we don't discuss LGBTQ. We don't.
We do discuss it.
Yeah,
We just.
What is the role of the bishop to
Mhm.
swag surf?
Mm-hmm.
What is the role of the bishop of dedicating a baby from two same gender loving couples? Is that this is not just a pastor, but somebody who gives oversight
Right.
to the direction and to the theology of the church.
Absolutely.
So you are not
Absolutely.
Citizen Joe.
Right.
Yeah,
And even
yes.
in this context, I'm
Yes.
not Mr. Praise is what I do.
Right.
I'm an apologist. I'm a
Yes.
defender of the faith.
Yes.
And my conviction about it, Dr. Bryant, is the conviction of Paul, that we have to be all things to all people, that I can have fellowship with you and not believe what you believe.
Yes.
Somebody asked me, people have like super courage
Yes.
on social media.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody asked me, well, why are you trying to get, because of course people didn't like the fact that I said 150 people got saved. What's your problem? And
Right.
so the clapback was, well, why you getting them saved if you don't believe in hell? Well, I never said I didn't believe in hell.
Right.
I just said, let Uncle Carlton come to Thanksgiving dinner and don't eat the macaroni,
Yes.
because you know it's off. And
Yeah.
that's no shade. But I think that there can be a difference of opinion, and yet you raised the term, there can still be compassion and love, because at the end of the day, the word on the street, and this is, of course, the clip that they didn't show. The word on the street is the church is not safe. And of course, in this dispensation where everybody has a therapist, one of the key concepts is you got to get somewhere safe. You got to find your safe space. I'm
Right.
saying the church, because we've been so, I'm just going to say it, because we've been so bound by religion and what was. Like, I mean, think about this. There are churches that are still fighting over women wearing pants, when the Bible clearly was talking about if there were no pants when the Bible was written. So if they want to hold to that scripture, we got to all put dresses on. It's out of context. And I think as a bishop in the Lord's church, what I didn't understand, I'll be completely honest with you, what I didn't understand was the weight of my voice, was the weight of our assignment in terms of leading the church forward.
Yeah.
The church, in a lot of ways, has been another Republican Party. That what they're saying to me, like the Republicans are saying stuff about Trump in
Yes.
private, that's what a lot of pastors have done with me. They sent messages like, bro, do you, be you, you leading us, we watching, break the walls down.
Yeah, but I don't want the Nicodemus support that's going to DM you.
Yeah,
They
like
not
you
posting
got,
that
and
and put it up
let me
there.
go and shout out my
Yes.
homeboy, Pastor Dietrich Haddon came out, and of course they killed him too. He's a demon too.
Oh,
but
yeah.
at the end of the day, the Dream Center Church of Atlanta is not Kappa Alpha Psi. It's not a fraternity. It's supposed to grow.
Right.
We are supposed to draw people of all thoughts and culture and concept. It's not some members only club. The whole point of the church is to make disciples. And we've had some folk question that. Well, 150 people didn't get saved. They just joined your church. Really, bro? Like again,
Right.
just further demonstrating that the church is just not safe. And all I'm saying is we've got to be safe to a generation that feels threatened by religion. And I'm not saying that we throw away our traditions.
Right.
My grandfather, we laughed about this. My grandfather, God bless his soul, when Dee and I moved here 22 years ago, I preached that Sunday at my dad's church. Dee preached that Sunday at my granddad's church.
Oh, wow.
When she went into the pulpit to preach, she had to put on a doily.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
you know, so I come from,
Yes.
I mean, deep Baptist roots, but my grandfather was also one of the first Baptist preachers to ordain and license female clergy.
Wow.
He was also one of the first Baptist preachers to lay hands and speak in tongues. He was also one of the first Baptist preachers to have a Yamaha DX7. Only my musicians know what I'm talking about here. I mean, that was the devil.
Right.
Think about this, Dr. Bryant. 5 years ago, Facebook was the devil.
Yeah.
I mean, just the church has been so unsafe to a generation who really is seeking relationship with God, but the way that we have positioned it, it just doesn't make sense to them. And I'm saying we've got to be more intentional about fusing culture with the call of Christ.
To be clear, knowing the weight now of your words,
Yes.
and your presence,
Oh my goodness.
that you are, we never put it in sacred space, but that you are a social media influencer.
Yeah.
Not about food or for tennis shoes,
Oh my
but
goodness.
for the direction of the church.
If you don't know, now you know.
Now you know.
Oh my goodness.
A month later, would you swag surf again?
150 people.
That's not
Came
bad. I
to
know
the
what
altar.
happened. Would you do it again?
Absolutely.
Even with the cost of it?
Absolutely.
So you think that it balances itself out?
I think that it forces the church to have a conversation.
We've had the conversation.
No, we have not.
Yeah,
You and I.
The whole
have had the
Instagram has
conversation.
had the conversation.
No, people are throwing insults and they're fighting.
I got it. Yes.
I had to get off TikTok the other day because my folks were fighting with folks who were throwing insults.
Yes.
And again, so this coming Sunday, third Sunday in January, Dee and I will celebrate 18 years we've been leading this church. 18 years. Tens of thousands of people have made a decision to walk with God. All of them didn't stay, but literally tens of thousands of people, because of the ministry of the Dream Center Church of Atlanta, have come into relationship with the Lord Jesus.
Yeah.
18 years of successful ministry. And other Christians, and it wasn't all the church, but the church really led the attack.
Right.
Other Christians took a 90-second clip and drew a carnal conclusion for 18 years of ministry. And it is the picture of the church that we have to talk about, that we have to address. So absolutely I would do it again. Didn't like the insults, but I'm anointed. I can deal with that. I can manage that. I believe the whole point of this, Dr. Bryant, was to move the church forward so that we can have a conversation that causes us to really address culture, church culture, secular culture. Like what are we doing? Like, people really got offended because I was celebrating 150 people getting saved. Like, people were offended by that, and
I don't think they were offended by 150 people getting saved.
No, they were offended by it. Some of them were offended by it because they haven't had 150 people all year.
And that's what they were offended by.
Yes.
They were offended by, Bishop.
Yes.
That for you was the justification for the swag surf.
Oh, it absolutely was.
No, but listen, you have to think in context.
Let's be clear.
The average church is 50 people.
Right.
So you were saying because of the 150, it justifies the end. And I think that's where it was thrown off, because the overwhelming majority of people would not have seen 150.
Right.
And so for me, as your brother, I was burdened because in that snapshot, they got the swag surf, they walked it out, but nowhere in it did they get the message.
Right. They didn't get Acts chapter 3.
Yes.
Where Peter and John said, stand up and walk.
Right.
Which is how we got to walk it out.
Yes.
And they grabbed him by the right hand and they walked out with him, which is how we got to swag and surf. It was a prophetic.
Oh, I went back and listened to the whole thing because I needed to have it.
Oh yeah, so you could defend the faith.
Yes.
But and again, it is what we have to address as a church.
Yes.
Because we're drawing conclusions about people's lives from one episode.
Yes.
And we don't know the story of people's lives. And so people come into our context, they come into our church, and we judge people without really looking at the whole story. And so I just think the conversation, number one, I do it again because I'm an evangelist. I'm really about this whole soul winning thing. That's my assignment. We going to get them.
Yeah.
Where our church is expanding to Buckhead. We'll be there this Sunday at 8:00. Our church is expanding. We're expanding to another side. We're going down 20. Our church is expanding. We don't have room to put people. We got to find a bigger place to hold people. We're full at 10. We're full at 12. We got to find more space.
Right.
Why? It's not because I'm some witch. It's not because I'm some demon.
Right.
If you've been in my church for 10 minutes, you cannot deny that the glory of God lives there. And that's not because I'm such a good person. And this goes back to, this is going to be the whole defense of my dissertation when I go for my doctorate, that we've set this order of worship in proper biblical order. The outer court is where all of the stuff, the interactions happen between worshiper to worshiper. That's where you can walk it out. That's where you can swag surf, in the outer court. All of that stuff happens in the place where there's the exchanges from worshiper to worshiper.
Yeah.
But then after that, then you get access to the inner court, which is the place where there's this exchange from worshiper to God. And after there's this exchange from worshiper to God, a lot of churches never get to the place where there's an exchange from the worshiper to God. And if we don't get from worshiper to God, we never get from God to worshiper.
Right.
So which is why we're so personality driven. It's what God has done in our church. You my homie. You know where all the bodies buried.
Yes.
This ain't got nothing to do with me. This is God demonstrating to a generation that you don't have to be perfect to be used. That you don't have to have it all right. That you don't have to be error-free to be used of God in a significant way. I don't know who's watching this, but just grab a hold of that. That's for you. Because the enemy's tried to tell you, because of your mistakes and because of what you're struggling with right now, that you are not useful. He is a liar. I got a whole t-shirt. If the devil's talking to you, he's lying to you. Just hold on to that. And so all of these conversations, even if you go back and you look at, we're 18 years old, so we're revisiting some of the foundations of how we got started. And some of the verbiage when we got started was to create a safe haven for people who want to be in relationship with God, but just don't really fit in the traditional model of the church. And so we've created safe space for people to fuse
yeah,
their life with their relationship with God.
in creating this template for worship
Yes.
that I think is absolutely brilliant, from the outer court to inner court to Holy of Holies.
It's Exodus 25. I
And
didn't come
knowing
up with
where
it.
those separations are,
Right.
right? Where then do you say is the separation? Because not to lay people giving pot shots on Instagram or
Right.
TikTok.
Right.
For the generals of the church, for the fathers of the church.
Absolutely.
Where is the separation then, Bishop, between the secular and the sacred, and giving that safe space, but knowing that they are not the same?
Right.
So how do I separate that I'm in the world, but I'm not of it? I think was the clash from the pulpit, not from the balcony.
Right. So, and I'm glad you brought that up. The 29th of February is the opening night of what I call Demonstrate. And the Lord told me to demonstrate that people are watching by Facebook, they're watching on YouTube, but they still don't get it. That you've got to create space for pastors to sit, to ask questions, for you to walk them through the revelation of the tabernacle. It's Exodus 25. I didn't come up with it. It's right laid out there, where he talks to Abram and says, create a sanctuary where I may dwell. The first issue is, when we come in church, we talk about welcome into this place. He lives here.
Yeah.
This is his house. We shouldn't have to welcome God into his house. What are we doing that we have to invite God to come home?
Wow.
That's so I'm going to be talking about that February 28th and March 1st. I'm literally going to be sitting with pastors. Some pastors, I don't want to hear nothing you got to say, man. Come on.
Right.
I'm gonna walk you through the revelation of how to create a 1-hour experience where people can encounter God in a real way and go back to their life and be better. That's all this is about. So I'm talking about the difference in the outer court, that those exchanges where, and this is what God said to me. Church should not be China. It should not be some foreign country that we walk into where people have no idea what's going on. The miracle of Acts chapter 2 is not that everybody spoke in tongues. The miracle of Acts chapter 2 is that everybody heard the message of the gospel in their language. That's the miracle of Acts chapter 2. That's not the only miracle. It's not the biggest miracle. The biggest miracle is right around, you got to go all the way to the end of the chapter, right around verse 43, where Peter starts preaching. And because of what they had encountered, because they had already heard the message in their language, not in my language. I'm not trying to get you to understand the gospel the way I understood it.
Right.
I've got to communicate the message of the gospel in your native language. If you came up in the hood, you don't know the hymns of the church. So when you walk in my church, you're going to hear something that you heard on the radio. When you walk in my church, because here, 2 words, I want you to write this down. It's got to be relatable, and it's got to be palatable. See, we just keep doing what we've always done, and we love it because it's what we grew up in.
Right.
We love it. But there are people whose grandmama didn't bring them to church. Yeah. There are people whose mother never came to church, and their friend brought them. What are you doing that when they walk in your church, they hear something that they can relate to, that makes them feel safe, that makes them feel included? So we have a time, I stole this from Bishop, a time called Pass the Peace. Y'all still do Pass the Peace?
We still do it.
Every Sunday, Pass the Peace. But we're not singing Just Want to Thank You for Pass the Peace. We're not singing You Reign for Pass the Peace. Right. It might be Frankie Beverly. It might be, it's something that disarms the non-believer, because sound, it either, watch this, Corinthians says, I think it's 12:7 or something like that. If what is being harped or piped doesn't give a distinction in the sound, who will know whether to charge or to retreat? And we get up and say, y'all want to have church today. No, It's because what you're communicating is not palatable.
Wow.
I can't relate to it. So I don't know what to do. I just stand there. Not that I don't want to be here. I don't know what's going on. I can't relate And so,
And that relatability, Bishop, I think missed on your critics, detractors,
yes,
and bloggers
yes,
is one thing I've been waiting 3 weeks for somebody to pick up,
wow,
and nobody has brought it up, and I wanted to bring it up today, is the significance that you were doing it in that pulpit with your son. And I think everybody missed
nobody,
everybody missed what that meant for a generation. You just turned 50. Your son is how old?
23,
23.
just turned 23 in
Yes.
December.
So to see two generations embroiled, I think was the picture everybody missed.
And watch this.
Yeah.
I didn't invite him on stage.
No way.
I didn't ask him to come on stage. It wasn't planned. It was a spontaneous moment as I was closing a now
Yeah.
the average preacher gonna close with say yes.
Yeah,
and
right.
and what my new key is F. It used to be A flat.
Yeah.
I'm getting old. I had to lower my key. My key
I
is
get
F. Yeah, but we close with Walk It Out. And 100, well, it was 2 services, so
Yes.
people even said that. I counted the people. It wasn't no 150
Right.
people. Well, that's because you only saw the 10 o'clock service. You see
Talk to me about how it is getting your children involved, Bishop, when 83% of adult preachers' kids don't go to church.
Ooh-wee.
83%.
83.
Yes, that they resent the church.
I just said it to you.
Yes.
It's because the ministry is, while it I want to say this in a way that doesn't offend, but everything must change. Everything has to evolve. Like I was talking the other night. Somebody said, "Well, it was good enough for me. It should be good enough for them." Well, you also used to use a rotary dial phone.
Right.
And it worked, and you were able to have conversations, but now you have a computer that also serves as a phone in your hand that you will miss a flight for if you leave it, because so everything has to evolve. And all I'm saying is, because we are who we are, when I put my hands on it, I sanctify it.
Wow.
But that my relationship with God is not so shallow or thin that when I touch a thing that is considered secular or non-religious to somebody else,
Yes.
the moment that I put my hands to it, it redeems.
Yeah.
And now it becomes useful for the kingdom of God. And we saw that. So, if nobody would have got saved that night, if nobody would have come to the altar, if nobody would have got filled with the Holy Ghost that night, that's the other thing they ain't talking about. People, literally children are being baptized in the Spirit in our church. Like literally children, like the revelation that God has given to me to walk them through that, to explain. Ain't no tarrying. We bring them to the altar, 2-3 minutes, bam. They got it. They're speaking in an unknown tongue. They have a prayer language now. This ain't no, yeah. So that's the point, that the way that we communicate it. That my children are in church because I didn't make them, or I didn't communicate the message of the gospel in my language. I communicated it in their language. My daughter is a worship and arts major at Lipscomb University in Nashville.
Yeah.
I didn't try to turn her into Tasha Cobbs.
Wow.
Because
right.
that's not who Kayla Murphy is.
Yeah.
Kayla Murphy is her flow is different.
Right.
So as I'm communicating the message of the gospel to Kayla, I'm not using praise is what I do to do that. I'm using some other songs and artists, and Tasha is Tasha, but Kayla's gonna be Kayla. The way I communicated with Tasha is not the way that I have to communicate with Kayla or David.
Yeah.
For that fact of the matter.
Yeah, but bravery, Bishop, is really on the brink of insanity, because bravery takes genius.
Man, listen.
And it requires isolation. So
Ooh-wee.
Nobody talks about that. Before Dr. King was assassinated, he became a chain smoker.
Wow.
Before he died, he was 12 pounds heavier than he had ever been.
Oh
that,
my goodness.
yeah, most people who deal with genius and deal with bravery have to deal with isolation, have to
Yes.
deal with rejection.
Yes.
And so having dealt with the ire and the vitriol of social media, because people on the other side of keyboards don't understand your humanity, your vulnerability.
Oh my goodness.
I want you, not as Bishop, as William, when with the camera off, the microphone disconnected, the benediction pronounced, walk me through what was going on in your mind over these 3 weeks when you're seeing people assault your character,
Oh my
question your
goodness, man.
ministry, undermine your anointing, second guessing your position,
Ooh-wee.
saying that they're not going to play your songs. Walk me through by yourself what that was for you.
This is what I said to, I believe I was talking to Apostle Hilliard. Apostle called me, and who covers you matters. Apostle called me. I said to him, while I'm human and while I'm dealing with, as a father, I think what was most hurtful for me was to watch my children, natural and spiritual, have to deal with the insults. And because, for 18 years, my son is 20, just turned 23. He was 5. My daughter was 3. This is all they know is the Dream Center. My daughter says to me, she's a worship arts major at Lipscomb in Nashville. She said that I didn't understand the significance of our assignment of our church until I went to Nashville and started seeing how other churches were having church and how my generation was relating to church. And she says, I didn't understand the significance of our assignment. She said, we need to do like a podcast or like some videos just talking about what God has called our church to do. And so I do this devotional every day. It started in COVID. Both you and I were doing all of this creative stuff, just trying to hold the church together. And it just kind of turned into this whole movement. And so every day at 9:00, I'm doing my devotional, and there are people on there hurling insults and saying all kind of stuff. And so as a man, that I'm human, that at some point, some of that gets under your skin, you know, and I'm typing, I'm from Detroit. Yeah, I'm from 7 Mile.
Right.
This ain't going but so
really
far.
The Green Mile.
Oh no, this ain't going but so far.
Right.
I'm typing, and Holy Spirit. I was on one day. I had taken a couple of days off, and I was on, and people were just saying all kind of stuff on TikTok, and I said, if I'm not your man of God, if this doesn't minister to you, just shut your mouth. And then I said, that's not the way to say that. That's not kind. That's not nice. Of course, they took the shut your mouth part and reposted that. They didn't repost the part of me saying, that's not the way to say that. That's not kind.
Right.
And so I've had to manage all of that, understanding my assignment, why God allowed this. We had a prophetic voice in our church back in September who said that the Dream Center would be the church of the unapologetic cry.
Wow.
So we're not apologizing because we obey God. Now, it created some controversy. It created a bit of a distraction. But I believe, Dr. Bryant, conversations like this will help us to take what the devil meant for evil and use it for the good of the kingdom. That culture does not belong to Satan. We can redeem it. We can take it back. That we, I'm so disturbed in my spirit. I saw this clip going around where there were these 2 young ladies, God bless them, who were twerking and singing a song about the color of their vagina, 2 seats away from Dr. Bobby Jones, because they didn't know who he was. Now, in our context, Dr. Bobby Jones is a hero. He's a living legend.
Right.
2 seats over, you have these young ladies who were twerking and talking about the color of their buttocks hole 2 seats away from a senior statesman, and it's because they have no context for who he is and no context for a need for the church or the message of Jesus Christ. And so people are mad because we walked it out and we swagged and surfed, but that's why. Because you have 2 young ladies, beautiful girls, who have no idea who Bobby Jones is, who probably have never heard praise is what I do or it's working. Yeah. But they have heard walk it out. Yeah. And they have heard swag and surf. And so we fuse that into the worship experience so that they can relate, so that their hearts and their eyes and their ears are open. So when I start talking about this being a leap year, that you don't have to be lame, that your walk doesn't have to be off, that God will connect you with prophetic voices and prophetic ministry to help you write your walk so you don't have to be in your 30s still with a jacked up walk. Yeah. Because they heard the other messages that they could relate to. They heard the other sounds and songs that were palatable. It fit their palate. Now their hearts are open for the message of the gospel. That's why 150 people came to the altar. Not just because we did swag and surf, not because we did walk it out, but because their hearts and their minds were open to the message of the gospel. And it was delivered in a way that they could digest it and understand it. And that's where the church has to move to. First Sunday you come to my church, it's so crazy because that night, of course, we had a sneaker ball. So everybody was dressed up with sneakers. Right. The very next day, the next Sunday, I had on a ratchet. Some people might say it was ratchet, but I had on a ratchet clergy collar. All of our ministers were dressed up because we don't have to be one thing. So first Sunday, we're dressed up. We're in clergy attire. Second Sunday, we're in Jordans and jeans and jerseys. We give that Sunday to our youth, to our young people. And we don't have young people doing stuff that old people would do. We have young people ministering to God and ministering to us in their context. So there was a DJ there. We played songs that people could hear and understand. So if you don't hear nothing I said today, you've got to make the message of the gospel relatable and palatable. Now, what that means for you may not be swag and surf. It may not be walk it out. What that means for you, I don't know. We all have to have our own measure of faith. Yeah. But for us, the demographic that we called to, that was the bait that we used, and it worked. And so we're a soul saving station. And yes, that's old school language.
Oh,
but,
no, you did it.
So, listen, before we get off, I got to tell you, you see this shirt that says compassion is the currency of the kingdom. Thank you, Dr. Bryant, for this compassionate conversation, for giving me a platform to really just kind of talk through the tension of the last couple of weeks. I'm a churchman. I want the church to survive. I want the church to thrive. I want the church to be everything that God has called her to be in this dispensation. Thank you, Dr. Bryant.
No, I'm grateful.
I love you, man. Let's go eat.
Listen,
let's wait. We fasting. We can't.
I'm not fasting. Listen, let me say this to you. Let's be clear. One of the clear indications from William Murphy is understanding the expression standing on business.
Listen.
That if you're going to be controversial, you got to stand on it. If that is your conviction, then you do not waver on it. When you understand what it is that you are assigned to do and feel like this is where God is leading you, then don't shift from it. I've got to say this to you, that greatness is unpopular. John Maxwell said, if you want to be liked, sell ice cream. But if you do anything outside of that, know that you're going to have the fight of your life.
Wow.
Cornel West said something that has bothered me over the last couple of weeks. He said, this generation is about having a brand. He said, my generation is about having a cause. Woo! I want you to make sure that when you make everything clear, that your cause is bigger than your brand. Because your brand may have to change, but your cause has got to remain consistent. Wow. Can't wait to talk to you on next week. Everything else that is fuzzy will be clear right here. Thank you for hanging out with us on Let's Be Clear. I'm sure that you were engaged, that you were entertained, you were equipped, and you were empowered. You can hear it all on wherever it is that you listen to your podcast or see it exclusively at jamalbryant.org. I'll see you next week.